Okay. If a person would not have any memory, no retention whatsoever, we would not be able to speak. We would not be able to process anything. Because from moment to moment, if you don't retain what you experienced a moment ago, what's the next moment? The next moment is unrelated to the previous moment. So what do? You exist as a vegetable. The mind remains totally non-functional. You cannot survive. Because human survival is based upon initiative. But if a person, his mind has no retention of anything, there's no initiative. So what would you do? You would die. So what's the value of memory? At the most simple level, we're able to speak. We're able to communicate. We're able to understand based on experience. You taste something. This tastes sweet, this tastes bitter, this tastes sour. Why? Because you've had that experience and you identify whatever that may be, or even if you didn't eat that, but it's similar to something else, you're able to put it in a certain context. But if you have no memory, where are you going? You're going nowhere. So what is the gift of memory? What's the gift of intelligence? It's the essence of the human being. Without that, you couldn't function, okay? But that faculty, which is called memory, retention, analysis, whatever you want to call it, all that is bringing in information outside of us into this faculty called brain, processes based on different parts of the brain. That's the reality. So we and our understanding are two separate entities. There's us and there's what's outside of us. We bring it in and we process it based on that processing, whether it's correct, not correct, accurate, almost accurate. That's the basis for perspective. That's the basis for ability. It's basis for everything. Okay? What about God? That God knows. That God understands. Does God have a brain? God is an infinite being, no beginning, no end. Whatever exists, it exists only because it's an expression of his will. Why does God know our thoughts? Because God wills an energy which gives the human being to be able to have the chemical activity in his brain, which does all these various processes, which we do. So there's nothing that which is associated with God that exists, which is not God himself, because he wills that reality. So God and his knowledge is one and the same. So if God is infinite, he spans existence and pre-existence, post-existence. Is God in the future? Has the future taken place yet? With God, the future has taken place already. It's not something outside. There's nothing outside of God. If that's the case, when God knows there's a tzaddik, God already saw the person making the choices being the tzaddik, because he facilitated that free will for him to become the tzaddik. And the Rasha who chose to be the Rasha, the evil person, God facilitated the context of choice for him to be that. He did that. Otherwise, he couldn't have been that. You know, the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin that when the evil sleep, it's good for them, it's good for the world. Why? Because when they sleep, they can't do any bad. They're inactive, they're dormant. When tzaddikim sleep, it's not good for them, it's not good for the world. Because when tzaddikim are fully functional, awake, they're productive. So they are beneficiaries, and the world's a beneficiary of their activities. Understand? We say about Hashem in Tehillim, Lo yonum v'lo yishan shomei Yisrael. The protector of Israel, Lo yonum, he doesn't doze, he doesn't sleep. He's always connected to every aspect of existence. Whatever happens to us, it's happening because he wills it should happen. And he gives the enemy the ability to make that choice and to succeed in that choice, if God wants him to succeed. If he doesn't want him to succeed, as much as he wants to destroy us, he's not able to destroy us. Because it's only God gives him the means to exercise that choice. But if God withholds that ability, as much as he chooses, he can't succeed. You know, you want to fly. You could want to fly from today to forever. It's not within the human capacity to fly unless he has some kind of machine, a flying machine, which is called an airplane. Right? You could fly. You jump off a building, you're flying in the wrong direction. Right? It's called suicide. So God and his knowledge is one and the same. It's us and it's what we know. It's outside of us. That's what God knows everything on an absolute level. We find in the 13 tenets of Jewish belief, before we speak about reward and punishment, it says God knows every thought, every action of every human being. That's first. Secondly, there's reward and punishment. Why does knowing every thought and every action, why does that precede reward and punishment? Because he'd say maybe there's certain things God doesn't know. We did the right thing or the wrong thing. Maybe God's not aware of everything. Maybe God doesn't have the full picture. It's not possible. Every aspect of existence, our thoughts, our actions at every level, God is aware of it. God knows it. Because God wills that process to be able to do what you do at that particular moment. Based on that context of choice, now we can talk about reward and punishment. Because it's not possible for God not to know what your thoughts are and what your actions are. You can't conceal anything from God. God knows what's in our hearts. He knows what's in our emotion. When you serve God out of joy, or you serve God out of obligation, and you put on a good facade, you could look like the holiest person I've walked the face of the earth. But it may be all just purely a facade. Well, maybe you're pulling the wool over God's eyes. Not possible. Because every aspect of your function, your emotional, your mental, your physical, everything, he wills that. So what you experience, you're experiencing as he wills it. Therefore, he knows everything about us. Our thoughts, our actions, our feelings. After he knows that, we speak about that. A fact, there's such a thing as reward and punishment. So therefore, there's nothing that goes unseen or not known at the most acute, infinitesimal level. You know, today you have this is when I went to school. Today, I'm sure it's beyond it, endless times over. You had a microscope that magnified whatever you saw under that lens, I don't know how many times. Today, I'm sure they have a microscope that magnifies it to many more levels. Whatever you see there, the atom, the subatom, whatever it is. Does God know about the atom? But every existence, whatever it is, subatomic, post-atomic, whatever it is, it exists because God willed that existence. And the dynamic and the infrastructure, the profile, God wills that. It continues to will it. So of course he's aware. There were things known to Chazal in the Talmud, which only recently modern medicine's finding out. How did they know it? How did they know many things? These people didn't go to medical school. You know, even though there's a quote in medical school, these rabbis, they knew medicine. Right? They knew finance. They knew everything. They knew the world was never flat. They understood the galaxies. They knew everything. Because since the basis for existence is the Torah, and a person who achieves a certain level in spirituality through the Torah, God reveals to him the realities of existence, the realities which humanly you cannot come upon. The Talmud quotes a posuk, Sod Hashem L'Reov. The secret is shared with those who revere him. God shares secrets of existence, which humanly you cannot come upon those secrets. It's only because God shares it with those special people. Because they themselves are totally ungodly, and they have that level special relationship with God himself. But whatever even the prophet knows, or the special divinely inspired person knows, it's because he's divinely inspired. Because God is feeding him, is funneling into him information. It's like putting information into a computer. Put a program. Hashem's putting that information into the mind and the emotion of the prophet or the person who's divinely inspired. When a psyche has a sense, there are certain energies in existence. And because they're energies, he senses those energies. He has a sixth sense, a seventh sense, whatever it is, doesn't make a difference. But because he has a sense, he's able to sense what the average person can't sense. And based on that sense, he's able to come upon certain information because he has that sense. But even the psychic, where is he getting the information from? It's the energies that exist. He's able to sense what those energies represent. Therefore, he becomes knowledgeable and aware of certain things. But it's all outside of him. Every person. Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest prophet ever walked the face of the earth. He prophesied in wake state. But how did he know all this? Because God communicated it to him. Because he was the repository of God's knowledge. Because God communicated his capacity. God gave him that capacity. That he was able to absorb and encompass many things. Because he had this mega soul, which was the equivalent of the Jewish people. Therefore, he had this one-of-a-kind of capacity. Rambam, in the Laws of Tshuva, previous chapter, which we do right now, based on the Talmud, explains what is a tzaddik. A tzaddik is a person who's presented with choices in his lifetime, and the majority of the choices that he made are positive, are correct choices. A Rasha, an evil person, where the majority of challenges or choices he was presented with in his life, he chose to do the wrong thing. If the majority is positive, the classification is tzaddik. The majority is negative, classification is Rasha, evil. Could be the nicest guy in the world. He could feed his dog and cat and raise money for, for who knows what. The medical research on human beings, not on animals. That doesn't determine you're a tzaddik or Rasha. It's what God says is right, what God says is wrong. So if the majority of your decisions are positive within God's lexicon, then you're a tzaddik. Not negative, Rasha. Now, but you realize there are many shades of tzaddik. Moshe Rabbeinu was a tzaddik. He was more than a tzaddik. Because not only did he do everything on that special level right, it was the most advanced level of special. It was infused with the greatest degree of spirituality, love, selfless, commitment, whatever it is. So every person, even though you're a tzaddik, and you may be classified as that, but factually speaking, you may not be similar to someone else because you may have certain shortcomings, or whatever you did, you didn't do it perfect enough. Although it's perfect enough to meet the standard of tzaddik, but not the ultimate tzaddik. There's ultimate and ultimate and ultimate. Okay, that's what it is. Now, this evaluation, the Rambam writes that only God, who knows it all, knows everything, could make this evaluation. And he explains you can have one mitzvah, which is such a mega mitzvah, which only God knows what its innate value is, could outweigh multiple sins. Because the sins, although they're transgressions, it's not a quantitative evaluation, it's a qualitative evaluation. And the only one who can make this qualitative evaluation is only God himself. Because only God knows the innateness of every mitzvah or every sin. And he knows the innateness of every person. To what did he contribute? To the negative or the positive? That's tzaddik and Rasha. Does the tzaddik have to go to Gehenna to be purged? Yes, at times. Why? He may have certain impurities. And before he goes to the world to come and be in that special place, he has to be expunged of all that evil. But only God makes that decision. Who yes, who not. Russia, certain person's evil, he has no share in the world to come. He ultimately goes into the oblivion. You have another Russia, although ultimately after purging, he will have some redeeming innate qualities, he'll go to the world to come. It's a different type of purging. It's a different extent of time. That's basically, in a very simple presentation, what tzaddik is and what Rosh is. Personally, is highly inspired when God communicates that fact to him. It has nothing to do with his intellectualism. It just comes to him with a sense of definiteness that is definitely the reality. Like when you see the sun shining, it's definitely you see the sun. This fact which is communicated to him, and it goes into his mind and his emotion, it comes out of nowhere, but he knows the way it's internalized, this is the reality of his life. And it's unquestioning that this is the way to go. You know, you have to read the story of the Mir Yeshiva when they fled Russia to go to Kobe, Japan, and to go to Shanghai. All their experiences just during the travel. When they came to Vladivostok, which is at the edge of Russia before they took the boat to Kobe, Japan, it was an old, rickety, large cargo ship. And they had to make 3 trips back and forth. The boat could sink the moment, especially if it's overloaded. It was overloaded with people. And the holy rabbi, who was the head of the yeshiva there, his name is Rabbi Yechatzkel Levenstein, Zeichat Tzaddik Livrocha, blessed memory, he said, you do it. Not to worry. They made 1 trip, 2 trips, 3rd trip. After they unloaded, the people disembarked in Kobe, the last trip, it sank in the harbor. The ship went down. That's what happened. And whatever he said, it always happened exactly. Why? He was divinely inspired. Where to travel and not to travel. What would have been disastrous? What would have been a death trap? Although it looked surface-wise, that's the way to go. If they would have gone there, they would have all perished. And he told them, you can't go there. And the more they listened, they understood. He had it right every time. There's a famous story when they were in Shanghai that the yeshiva, they studied in a warehouse. The warehouse had a capacity held 2,000 people. Rabbi Cheskel Levenstein said, in 2 hours, this warehouse will collapse. Everybody should vacate the warehouse, the books, the furniture, everything out. 2 hours to the second, it collapsed. If God forbid they wouldn't have known, many people would have been killed. Just tell them, that's divine inspiration. We dream at night. He speaks about dreams. We dream at night. During the day, that our faculties are in full operation. There's too much distraction. So there's many energies and things going on around us. There's too much distraction that we don't pick up those energies. When a person sleeps, the body is dormant. But the mind is awake. The mind is there. Therefore, in the sleep state, you're able to come upon certain facts which may be true, because the body being dormant, it has a capacity to pick up this information. It may not be accurate, but it can pick up a lot of information. That's why when a person sleeps, the times he sleeps of things which are actually truthful. But the Gemara says every dream has some, just as wheat has chaff in it, every dream has foolishness and nonsense in it, even though there may be an element of truth. But why when you sleep? It's because, as I'm saying, all these energies, all the facts of existence are out there. You just have to have the ability to process them. When you're in awake state, you're too distracted because the body is fully in operation. But when you go to the dormant state, in that state, the mind is able to accumulate certain information, and that's the reason why the dream may actually turn out to be true.